sit here. Ready to go? Thumbs up? Great. Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. My name is Reverend Dr. Beth Brown, and I'm the pastor of this church, Lincoln Park Presbyterian Church. I'm also one of your interim commissioners on the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. I'm standing before you today with all of these amazing humans here and here to issue a citywide call to faith communities to house, support, and accompany the migrants who are currently living in police district stations across the city. 40 years ago, my congregation began partnering with the Wellington Avenue United Church of Christ to provide sanctuary to those in danger of being deported. In 2019, we were asked again by the Wellington Avenue Church to provide housing for a family of 4 seeking asylum. They lived with us here in our church building for 6 months. We provided them with housing and some financial support, and Wellington Avenue Church provided case management and so much more. We're currently housing and supporting and accompanying our 4th asylum family. With the help of Wellington Avenue Church and the Sanctuary Working Group that is part of the Chicago Religious Leadership Network, we have developed a model that works for helping migrants and those seeking asylum to be safely housed and supported while going through the process of getting work authorization and then working and saving money for their first apartment. We want to share this model with faith communities throughout Chicago so we can all be a part of the solution for migrants who have come to Chicago hoping for a better life, or at the very least, some safety. Before I go into more detail, I want to acknowledge the harm that wealth theft and neglect has wreaked in some communities on the south and west sides of Chicago. We are living in a complicated city at a critical time. Mayor Johnson said recently at his inauguration, "We are living in one of the richest cities in one of the wealthiest countries at the richest time in the history of the world." We don't act like it. What Chicago needs right now is to reject a scarcity mindset and to take on an abundance mentality. We have to invest in the neighborhoods that have received so little for so long. In 2020, the city's housing department estimated we are short 120,000 affordable units, and that number has only grown in the last 3 years. We need to invest in far more low-income and affordable housing and in much more permanent supportive housing. But don't be fooled into thinking that we have to choose between these or housing and supporting migrants. That is a false choice. Not only are we here at Lincoln Park Presbyterian Church, we are also at the home of the Lincoln Park Community Services, a 35-bed, year-round, full-service shelter for those experiencing homelessness. We have been housing them here for more than 40 years. I tell you that to say we can choose to do both, to invest in our Black and brown neighborhoods and communities, and we can provide hospitality to strangers, some of whom are Black and from various countries in Africa, because we are a welcoming city. Let's be a welcoming city, Chicago. And let's keep pushing hard to invest in our vastly under-resourced neighborhoods. Supposedly, there are more than 11,000 faith communities in this city. This is our specific ask today. Faith communities, please form groups of 2 to 3 and work together, and each group commit for 1 year to housing and supporting and accompanying a family or couple or group currently living in police districts. The cost varies depending on who is in the group, but the financial commitment is somewhere between $600 and $900 a month if you can house them in your church or synagogue or mosque or temple. What our Faith Communities Initiative will do is provide help to you with logistics, case management, and ongoing partnership. If you're a faith community in the Chicagoland area and you're interested in being a part of this effort to get migrants out of the police stations, please go to our website, lppchurch.org, and submit the form requested. Someone from your community will be required to attend a 2-hour training, and then we will work on the process of matching you with a family in your police district. We will follow a strict protocol regarding getting families to faith communities to avoid any confusion. If you are a faith community outside of the city and are interested, you would fill out the same form, and we will figure out which district to go to match you with the family. If you are an individual or a family and not tied to a faith community and you want to do this, please follow the same format. We will have a different process for you, but we want to encourage you to do this if you're able. All of us sitting here today and standing here today who have opened our homes or our faith communities to families have been nothing but grateful for the time with them. We can do this, Chicago. Let's house the more than 700 people living in police stations by the end of June. We aren't doing this because we think it's going to solve the whole crisis. We are doing it because every faith tradition calls us to at least two things. We are to treat others as we want to be treated, and we are to welcome the stranger and provide hospitality. There is no more tangible form of ministry than to open your house of worship to those who are in need of shelter. I believe if we do this, we will experience more abundance than ever before, and that abundance will spread throughout Chicago. Before I close, I want to thank Alderperson Maria Hadden, who has worked tirelessly. She has worked tirelessly on this effort on multiple fronts and was the first city council member to say yes to this idea. I also want to thank Senator Sarah Feigenholtz, who couldn't be here today, for writing this project into the state budget. Without her, this project might not have gotten off the ground. I also want to thank and affirm the hundreds of people throughout the city who have stepped up to provide food and clothing and bedding and luggage and so much more to migrants who were sent to police districts with nothing. There are faith leaders all over the city who have been involved in this in a variety of ways, and thank you for doing the work. The alder people who are here today have been working night and day to not only be welcoming, but to keep people safe at the same time. And you will hear from several organizations today who have been doing this work for decades. Faith communities in Chicago, let's partner. Let's exercise some new muscles, and at the same time, keep fighting for every neighborhood in Chicago as we welcome strangers who can become friends. Thank you.
I want to thank Pastor Beth. One, thank you for hosting us. Thank you for opening up your space to us for this purpose, and also for being such a leader in this effort. I appreciate it. I'm Maria Hadden, she, her, alderperson in the 49th Ward, and I'll keep my comments short today. I come from a faith tradition, but don't feel a strong attachment to it. The call and the faith and I guess what I think of as my practice is really always been a call to service. So from organizing to nonprofit work to volunteerism to running for public office, I find so much of my joy and so much of my practice of the closest thing that I have to faith in serving constituents and serving my community and in being in community with people. And I know that while that might not be directly connected to a particular faith tradition, it's certainly a sentiment that flows through most of them. So when you have elected officials, or when we have government working on an effort like this, trying to solve a problem, trying to welcome people into our space, remember, a lot of people in public service, they are called to service. And in some ways, that can be a different type of faith. We need our faith communities to be an active part of the solution, right? Government frequently fails us. And we get really angry. This is Chicago, so I feel like it is a Chicago right to just be very upset at government. It's like kind of what we do. But it's also important to remember that in many circumstances, we expect too much of government. There are so many solutions that we need in our own communities that government can't or won't provide. And while we organize and work to change and form government to do the things we want it to do, we also need non-government efforts. So I implore all of our faith communities to kind of answer this call to service. We've got individuals and families who've traveled thousands of miles. We have folks in our 24th District Police Station that, despite all the care being provided, right? I have to say, in the 24th District, we have a fantastic CAPS organizer, Mayra Gomez. We've got fantastic staff there who've been doing what they can. We have a huge volunteer effort. Community members who have been tirelessly providing meals, service, material needs that people have. We've got a whole citywide medical team, right, of med students and doctors and people volunteering their time to do assessments. People are already stepping up. We're just asking to go a little bit further. This initiative will have a direct impact not only on the lives of the asylum seekers, right, that you're going to be helping to shelter and support, but on the lives of our broader community, and is an opportunity to demonstrate alternatives. So much of what gets me excited about what we can do in government and when we're facing these big challenges is the opportunity that we have to demonstrate something different. What is the Chicago we want to be? What are the communities we want to build? What would we want done for us or our family? And we can make those changes right now. You don't have to wait on President Biden. You don't have to wait on Congress. You don't have to wait until tomorrow, right? You can go to the forum, you can sign up, you can call folks in your congregation, you can talk to your neighbors, and you can be a part of this effort. And if you're not sure, still sign up. Right? This is an opportunity for you to learn more. You don't know what you have to offer, right? Maybe you don't have the physical space, but you might have the volunteers. You might have the ability to help raise funds for some of the financial support. You don't know what gifts and what talents you have to offer. And so please answer the call. Check out the website. Come to the orientation. And know that the time that you're spending is going to change the life of somebody. It's going to make it better, and you are going to be answering a call to service not just to your faith, but also to your city. So thank you.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. I'm Reverend Dr. Marilyn Pagan Banks. I'm the Executive Director of A Just Harvest, pastor at San Lucas United Church of Christ, and recently elected to the 24th District Police Council. And I say all this because I think it's important to understand how we all need to engage in this work from a place of compassion, from a place of knowing that we are called to be neighbors, and if we want our community to be well and to thrive, that everyone must have access to being well and able to thrive, right? And so it's just perfect that I'm following Alderwoman Maria, because in our context, A Just Harvest doesn't own any space, our church is very tiny, and the district council doesn't have any money, right? However, we do have relationships, and we've already and will continue to make sure that we're providing food to the police stations, that we're providing access to food at our church and clothing and resources that people need, even as we find ways to change the system that causes people to have to come here because they can't stay home. Amen? So it has to be a both and an and. We have to serve, we have to fight, we have to make space, and then we also have to take up space. So we don't have space to offer a family to come and stay, but we can take up space to make sure that our community is not only responding with love and kindness, but that the government is providing the resources that they ought to provide. Since they're not going to do the work, they might as well pay us to do the work, right? And so we have to make sure that as we're creating space for everyone and making sure everyone feels welcome, that we're also being prophetic and changing the system that keeps our people on the street every day. So we've already been working with Maria and others around housing for those who are living in tents, housing for those who are living under viaducts, and yes, continue to make sure that folks who are coming into Chicago also have access to housing. So the other thing we have to do as the faith community is to watch our own hearts in this work and the narrative. When we hear the why this but not that, we have to bring it together and help folk understand that it must be both and, that we will continue to work for the people of Chicago, right? While we live into being the Chicago that we say we are. We're going to continue to make space and be loving and kind with the people who live here already, who are already facing their own kind of sense of being pushed out and having to move and not feeling like they belong. We're going to continue to do that work while we make space, and it has to be together. It's only when we begin to bring those stories together and build power that we're really going to change the face of this city and the face of this country. And that is our responsibility as the faith community. So sign on to the initiative, even if you don't have the answer, because sometimes we don't need to have the answer. We just make space for those who are impacted to bring the answers that they already have. So let's just sign on and then figure out the rest in community, for community, and by community. Amen? Amen. Amen.
Greetings, everybody. I greet you in the name of that brown asylum seeker, formerly incarcerated person born in the city we call Bethlehem. My name is Reverend Avalon Beth Gaston, and I serve as the board chairperson of Community Renewal Society, a faith-centered social justice organization that has served Chicago metropolitan area for over a century. I bring greetings on behalf of the board of directors and our executive director, Reverend Dr. Waltrina Middleton, who is with us in spirit and sends her prayers and deep solidarity in this call to action. Community Renewal Society was birthed out of a mission and vision of inclusion. Our first mission was to create radical hospitality for immigrants, and later expanded to include the intersectional plight on the often dangerous journey to ready our shores. Lives are literally at stake. We call on all faith communities across our city and state to respond with a moral courage and integrity. Join us and our comrades in raising awareness, sharing our resources, opening our doors, and rejecting the divisive narrative that too often aims to pit Black and brown communities against one another. The notion that there is a divide between Black and brown people is false, and as it pertains to asylum and migrant advocacy, it is doubly false. We reclaim the narrative today as Black, brown, indigenous communities committed and united in our faith and our vision of hope of eradicating racism and poverty towards our well-earned and deserved beloved community. Furthermore, we outright reject the narrative of scarcity that too often results in the minoritized communities' further marginalization and impoverishment. We will no longer use the language of the oppressor to describe our conditions. We are not in a circumstances of scarcity, and we outright reject that narrative. We have more than enough as a society and as a beloved community. The notion of scarcity is racist and elitist, and we can no longer cling to that narrative. God calls us to do justly, to love mercy, and walk humbly. That is Micah 6:8. Community Renewal Society humbly shares in this prophetic charge and duty to serve. We invite our member congregations and community partners across the city and beyond to join this collective. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I am Alderperson Mike Rodriguez from the 22nd Ward on the southwest side of Chicago. You know, my community, alongside probably that of Maria Hadden, is also probably the most immigrant, most diverse community in the city of Chicago. And we believe that everyone, everywhere, whatever their circumstances, whatever their needs, they need one thing to survive, and that is hope. Whoever we are, wherever we are, whatever our circumstances, everyone needs the ability to realize their hopes and their dreams. And that is what has made Chicago such a symbol to the rest of this world. There is nowhere in the country that has more heart or more hope than our great city. We are a welcoming city. And that's why I am here to say thank you to the congregations, to the parishes who are stepping up to provide that hope. You know, it was in the late 19th century and the early 20th where we had Irish and Italian immigrants coming to our country. In the early 20th century to mid 20th century, we had the great migration from the south of African Americans. My people came. They immigrated from Mexico and migrated from Puerto Rico in the mid to late 20th century. Each of these migrant populations were searching for that hope in our great city. And they found it here. And they've made this city a much greater city. Now we have Central and South American immigrants, migrants, asylum seekers coming and searching for that hope. They will be filling our classrooms. They will be essential workers. They will be a part of our society. And we're asking today for our brothers and sisters in the faith community throughout our great city, throughout our great region, to step up and help in providing that hope. That hope now in the 21st century that our brothers and sisters from Venezuela and other areas are coming to seek in our great city. I think I see Channel 5 back there with Telemundo, so I'll briefly say some comments in Spanish. Es un placer estar aquí como su concejal del Distrito 22. Estamos dando la bienvenida a nuestros hermanos queridos de Centro y Suramérica, que están buscando lo que todos están buscando. Es la esperanza que ofrezca nuestra ciudad y nuestra región, que es un líder no más aquí en la región del medio oeste de los Estados Unidos, pero todo el mundo. Aquí en Chicago hemos recibido generaciones tras generaciones de personas buscando la esperanza. Y ahora la estamos urgiendo a las parroquias en toda la ciudad de Chicago y toda la región de seguir brindando esa esperanza. Por favor, sea parte de este esfuerzo de ser líderes, de ser parroquias de bienvenida a nuestros nuevos migrantes, que están buscando lo mismo que han buscado los de antes, la esperanza que otorga nuestra gran ciudad que es Chicago. I'll just finish saying thank you very much, Maria Hadden, for the welcome here, Reverend Dr. Beth Brown. I feel the spirit here in Lincoln Park, the same that I feel when I enter my respite center in Little Village. Thank you very much for having us.
I'm Rabbi Seth Limmer, founder of Open Judaism. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a proud celebrant of Pride Month. In synagogues across our world this weekend, my people are opening up to the book of Numbers. And the book of Numbers is so called in English because it begins with 600,000 refugees taking account of themselves in the desert with no city hall or Springfield to send resources. Now, the good news is there's another source of resources, and we learn of manna coming down from heaven. More about that in a second. And a question the Jews have always asked, because we like to ask questions, is how do you take account of 600,000 men, plus women, plus children, plus the mixed multitude of people who also sought liberation alongside us? And the answer is very simple. You don't take a census. The word count is never used in Hebrew in the book of Numbers, which is actually called Bamidbar in our tradition, the book of the wilderness. Instead, we are instructed, and that is the title of this week's Torah portion, naso, lift up, elevate. Naso et rosh. In our tradition, we do not count individuals to get to 600,000. We elevate their heads, that we might look into their eyes and take account of their humanity as they take account of our humanity. That is what this incredible project, inspired by my good friend and partner in making sacred mischief, the Reverend Dr. Beth Brown, brings to us. Not one of us, maybe 5 older people, but not one of us can house 600,000 refugees from Egypt, or however many refugees and people seeking asylum are coming to our home of Chicago. But each of us can lift up our eyes to look into the eyes of another human being, another family, and find home in our synagogue, in our church, in our mosque, in our temple, in our apartment, to recognize their humanity and help them find a home and help them find a start. In our Torah portion, when manna comes down from heaven, it might seem like a gift, but you need to work for it every day, except for one. Tomorrow, you get the day off. That's where we are in Chicago. We have gifts, and we need to do the daily work to take care of those gifts and to make the most out of them. And we have people coming on our shores seeking refuge, and we cannot turn aside our eyes. But we must lift up our eyes and lift up the heads of each one of these families and help them find a home.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Timmy Knudsen. I'm the alder in this ward that we're in right now, the 43rd ward. And I want to start by just saying happy Pride to everyone, because it touches this. When I look at this group behind me and everyone in here, I'm really proud of this response. I'm proud that the Reverend Dr. Beth Brown's congregation is in our community, and I'm proud of our community. Currently our 43rd ward office is busting from the seams with things that the community have donated. Our churches are reaching out, trying to fill this response. I want to start by telling a quick story, and it's really hard to tell a story after a rabbi tells a story because you never succeed, but I'm going to go for it. So last summer I had the opportunity to take a sabbatical. I spent it in a LGBTQ plus shelter in Tijuana, Mexico. And it was a culmination of a lot of work I had done in the legal community on asylum, but in a different way, doing it in Tijuana, a city that has been boiling over in a lot of ways due to, quite frankly, our policy for closing the borders to asylees for the first time in decades. It was almost clinical interviews, which felt wrong, but my goal was to get through 30 I-589 applications, which is the route to asylum in the state. So if and when these people living in this anonymously placed shelter were able to cross, they'd have the legal paperwork in hand. the stories that I heard from people, and I want to focus on 50% of the home were members of the trans community, about their journeys from El Salvador and Nicaragua and other places in South and Central America to Tijuana, how brutal that journey was, is how they are landing here. While we are communicating with the asylum community here, we have to keep that in mind. So many members of the trans community in particular were trafficked along the way. I talked to several trans women who had been stabbed. They had knife wounds on them, and they escaped trafficking barely to get to this anonymous location in Tijuana. And I have a lot of faith in this response in Chicago, in us being the sanctuary city that we are, that we have the resources and the skill sets to support this community to a pathway to all they want, which is to live and work and go to school and be a part of a new and safer community. So I tell that story just so as we're communicating with these asylees, how we really need to be gentle with them. Now, I have the goal as an alder that mostly is in the 18th district of police. We're right now in the 19th, about 30% of our ward is in the 19th. My goal is getting people out of those districts as quickly as they arrive. It's a heavy goal, but we can only meet it with the faith community. That's the only way. We've seen that so far. Yesterday, we moved 4 families into a church down the street. And my goal is really to keep it moving because the faith community is the holistic response to these families being here. Therefore, I'm so grateful to the Reverend Dr. State Senator Sarah Feigenholtz and so many of you making this possible. So again, I'm just going to end this with pride. I'm so happy that this faith community is stepping up, and we are here to help in any way. It can be as small as, when I came in, the Park District asked, figuring out how we can get kids into great programming this summer so that they have a great first summer in Chicago, to bigger, how can we find more funding? That's what you can rely on us for, and we're going to try our hardest. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt DiMatteo. I'm a pastor at New Life Community Church, also the executive director of New Life Centers. And I want to talk about seeds of faith, because it was 14 years ago that Sabina, a 72-year-old grandma in our church community, and her daughter started taking tamales to day laborers and street vendors, and really who were in need, and we brought them as a way to care for them, to walk with them. That then turned into a weekly food giveaway in partnership with Trader Joe's. We would feed about 100 families per week in the basement of our church. We did that for about 12 years. Then as COVID hit, we began to feed even more families. Week 1 of COVID, we got more food from Trader Joe's. We started feeding 400 families a week. Then we partnered up with Greater Chicago Food Depository. We started receiving donations. We opened up 7 sites. By May 1st, we were feeding 1,000 families per week. By June 1st, 2020, we were feeding 6,000 families per week. And actually 1 year ago, this week, we opened up the Pan de Vida Fresh Market, and it is a beautiful space full of dignity, hope, and healing where we feed 5,000 families every single month. That then turned into new arrivals coming in September. And we started with a few families. Because we're largely Latino serving and Spanish speaking, they started showing up. Then into the fall and winter, even more started showing up. We started seeing a crisis of housing. We opened up our New Life Lakeview location as a shelter for 60 people. We opened up our little village church for 10 to 15 guys to stay, even though we don't have a shower in the building. We needed space, we needed things. Then as we've gone into spring and the new arrivals continuing to come, we've now really created a whole movement in Little Village, and special shout out to Alderman Mike Rodriguez for partnering with us and nonprofits and groups across the city, where now every single day we feed 1,200 hot meals to the police stations. We bring them to 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, and 3. We have showers outside our building where we've showered more than 250 people in the last 3 weeks with Shower Up. We partner with the Greater Chicago Food Depository and Rincon Family Services, and now we have case management happening in our church basement. We have hot meals going to respite shelters. And Mike and myself were working closely with the Petrowski Park Respite Shelter and providing, yesterday we had baseball, tomorrow we have soccer, 2 weeks ago we had a large community event. And my point in saying all of those things isn't to say how great we are, but it's to say it was the seeds of faith of Claudia and Selena 14 years ago who started with what they had. And you know what they had? They had a small pack of tamales and a whole lot of love. And my call to the faith community is you look at this massive problem and you see 10,000 plus people coming and you say, what can we do? Well, this is one of the answers of what you can do. We have church spaces and places that are open and available. We have homes in our community and congregations that may have space, or we have the resources to sponsor families and provide the rent that they need to get settled and established. So, stop worrying about, well, what can we do? Where are we going to get the resources? And start small with what you have. And I promise you, just as Scripture says, faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. So let's start this together.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. My name is Claudia Lucero. I'm the Executive Director of Chicago Religious Leadership Network in Latin America. I'm also an immigrant myself, so this is very personal to me. In Sierra Leone, we recognize the dire circumstances faced by asylum seekers who have fled their home countries seeking for safety and protection. We should envision a city where asylum seekers and immigrants are welcome with open arms, where they are provided with the necessary resources and support to rebuild their lives and contribute meaningfully to our society. We call for the creation of city policies that prioritize their integration, ensuring access to education, healthcare, housing, employment opportunities as well. Integration is not merely a one-sided endeavor. It is a reciprocal process that enriches both asylum seekers, immigrants, and our wider community. By fostering an environment of inclusivity, we can harness their skills, talents, and resilience that asylum seekers bring with them, enhancing the fabric of our society and driving economic growth. We call upon city officials, policymakers, and community leaders and faith communities to work together in creating equitable policies that remove barriers, promote cultural exchange, and facilitate the social and economic integration of all residents in Chicago. By doing so, we can harness the diverse talents and perspectives that immigrants bring to our city, making Chicago stronger and more vibrant. We firmly believe the power of unity and collaborative efforts to address systemic issues and promote social justice. This press conference serves as an opportunity to emphasize the need for collective action, amplifying our voices of marginalized communities, and working together to build a more equitable and inclusive Chicago. We should commit to fostering dialogue, promoting understanding, and advocating for the rights and well-being of all residents, regardless of their background of immigrant status. By coming together as a community, we can create a Chicago that thrives on diversity, compassion, and equality. Thank you. Y un mensaje breve en español es que hablo en un mensaje de unidad. Necesitamos trabajar conjuntamente para crear políticas a nivel local que permitan la integración de migrantes y refugiados y personas que están buscando asilo. Pero al mismo tiempo necesitamos trabajar en políticas de unidad para todas las comunidades, no importando nuestro color de piel, nuestra nacionalidad, ni nuestro estatus migratorio. Es momento de unidad y de trabajar conjuntamente, comunidades latinas, comunidades afroamericanas. Gracias.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fasika Alam. I am Programs Director with the United African Organization, which is based here in Chicago and supports Black immigrants. We're also a member of the Sanctuary Working Group, which should really be the model for what we're talking about today. And I can really, that's really, the testimony, right? We've seen what faith-based support can do for families. It's not just about finding housing, it's about finding community, providing community. And that's what we hear about today. And so I want to share, we've heard, and obviously a lot of the folks that are supported through the Sanctuary Working Group include African immigrants from war-torn countries that are fleeing for their safety. So this work is very important to us. And despite the fact that we're not part of the narrative, we have many Black immigrants that are crossing into the US from Mexico. Since July of last year, we have had close, if not more than 300 people come to our office. And that's the folks that we know about. So we know this is an issue that is global, right? Yes, the numbers from Central and Latin America are large, but we know there are others that are also seeking refuge here. And so one thing I want to do in closing is really reject the notion that people migrate because they have a choice. So I want to quickly read this poem, and I'm sure y'all have heard it before, but I'm going to read it. It's a poem called Home by Warsan Shire, who is a Somali born in Kenya and now lives in the UK. So I'm just going to read a little bit about it from her poem. And it's emotional, so don't mind me if I tear up. No one leaves home unless home chases you. Fire under feet, hot blood in your belly. It's not something you ever thought of doing until the blade burned threats into your neck. And even then, you carried the anthem under your breath, only tearing up your passport in an airport toilet, sobbing as each mouthful of paper made it clear that you wouldn't be going back. You have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. No one burns their palms under trains, beneath carriages. No one spends days and nights in the stomach of a truck. No one spends days and nights in feeding on newspapers until the miles traveled means something more than journey. No one crawls under fences. No one wants to be beaten, pitied. No one chooses refugee camps or strip searches where your body is left aching, or prison, because prison is safer than the city of fire, and one prison guard in the night is better than a truckload of men who look like your father. No one could take it. No one could stomach it. No one's skin should be tough enough. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Come on. Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Jesse Hoyt. I'm the Executive Director of One Northside. One Northside is a community organization from over 100 institutions from Rogers Park, Edgewater, Uptown, Ravenswood, North Center, Lakeview, and Lincoln Park. One Northside is a mixed-income, multi-ethnic, intergenerational organization that strives to unite our diverse communities. We are an organization that brings people together based on our shared values. Two of those values is diversity and justice. And today, we have an opportunity to live out those values and bring together our community resources to protect our most vulnerable populations. The leadership of our faith leaders here today, along with our elected leaders, speak to those values, not only by putting our faith into action, but by taking ownership of bringing our communities together to address challenges that faces not just the North Side, but the entire city. On a personal note, as a Jew, well, raised in the Jewish tradition, as well as having the privilege of attending a Jesuit school, a Jesuit Catholic high school, I was grounded in Catholic social teaching. And one of the things that they taught was putting our faith into action. And this is where we are at today. This means not pitting our communities against each other, but instead uniting each other. One Northside, thank you. One Northside is committed to working with our faith leaders and larger community to welcome migrants to our city and support them as they become part of our city's beautiful mosaic. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I didn't need to read my name, but I had to get my reading glasses on anyway. My name is Daryle Brown. I serve as the Director for Social Justice at Trinity United Church of Christ on the South Side. And I'm here as a stand-in for my senior pastor, Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III, who couldn't be here because of traveling conflicts. But I do come to this with some love. I've been busy teaching at the church about the need for understanding the lament of the people and of working in community and bringing the people into the conversation about what we think the fixes are. We are so familiar. The two greatest commandments, love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and to love your neighbors as yourself. This is so basic to our faith that it would seem that there would be no challenge to meeting the needs of the strangers coming in our community. But unfortunately, I'm going to share that that's just not always the case. I served as a festival director for a film festival for about 7 years. And originally, my background is prison ministry. I've been doing prison ministry for about 23 years. We started the festival to raise awareness of mass incarceration and the challenges in the system. Soon, people were submitting films for all kinds of justice issues. And I'll tell you, some of the most heart-wrenching, incredible films we showed were dealing with migration. Dealing with migration here, dealing with migration to Europe. And we showed the best films, and many times those were the best. And one of the things that made our festival a little different was that we always tried to have panel conversations to dig a little bit deeper into the subject matter. And when we had one particular session, a beautiful, beautiful film about the bones being found in the desert as you cross the Mexican border and the people that would try to identify who they were. I mean, heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching stuff. And during the panel conversation, a very dear friend of mine, one of my film festival hardest workers, smart, brilliant family woman, works hard, engaged in the community, her concern was that we have so many problems right here. Why are we worrying about this? It's a challenge. We have an education challenge. I mean, this is going to be a great program. I look forward to Trinity engaging in it as deeply as we can. That's one story. And that took place probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, the COVID time gets compressed, right? Those 3 years, you kind of hard to look at them as 3 years. The second story is more current. This was about 4 months ago, and we had gotten word that there was a eviction crisis in Princeton Park, which is a neighborhood right next door to the church. A big developer had bought out this housing complex, and people were getting notices. And so Pastor Moss asked me to go to a meeting and see what was going on and see how we could help. Well, in the midst of that conversation, and I'm not going to name names, but one of the people that was pulling this together was running for an alderman position. And in the midst of that conversation, it shifted to St. Thaddeus, which is about 2.5 blocks away from Trinity, which had taken in migrants. And there was palpable outrage in the community. We need this help. Why are they helping them? And while I engaged in some conversation with folks that I could, I felt the need again that we need to grow the empathy muscles of our people. I mean, it's hard to see other people's need when you have need, and we need to teach that. So as I come here and I offer Trinity United Church of Christ's support for this campaign, I don't want to stretch Reverend Moss's commitment too deeply, but I do know that we have a mission revival in the middle of September, and every year we, as whatever the offerings are, we give them to certain causes. I'm committing part of our cause is going to be this institution. But I think as importantly, in my position of educational person within our very large congregation, is that I'm going to commit myself to that educational component to bring this community together. I've been doing restorative justice work for about 11 years, and I'm going to put some of that work together, bringing these migrants who they don't know the south side from the north side, from the east side, well, they know it from Hyde Park, but I'm just going to say. But I'm going to bring them together with church and community members and start the conversation. Because my suspicion is that when people hear the testimony of these men and women, these families, that we'll be able to move that empathy needle, and people can stop looking at the world, as folks have already discussed, one of scarcity, when we all know we live in God's abundance. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Daryle, he, him. I'm pastor at Christ Lutheran Church in Albany Park. So 4 weeks ago, our church became aware that there were families living at the police station in the 17th precinct. And two of the women who were there were pregnant. And I contacted our leadership, and we agreed on a couple things. One, we had no plan, we had no money, we had no volunteers. But we had two things. One, we had the Word of God, which compels us to welcome the stranger, and we had a building. And we knew that this building could be put to good use in welcoming the strangers and living out our faith. And so that evening, we were at the police station, and we welcomed 5 families who now are living at our church and have lived with us for 1 month. And it has been powerful for us to be able to offer them privacy and dignity and support and friendship. They may be with us for 3 months or 6 months or a year. It doesn't matter. They're welcome as long as they need a home. Our ministries have continued. This has not gotten in the way of our ministry. It provides some challenges, but nothing has had to be dropped because of this. It's not always easy. It's not the easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And I want to invite all people of faith communities to know this. If you have a building, you have a calling. If you have a building, you have a calling and an opportunity. You do not need to give up ministries. You just need to be able to manage them in ways that also will welcome the immigrant into your space. You will welcome them, and they will be blessed, and so will you. You will be welcoming families who otherwise would be sleeping at a police station. Parents, children, pregnant women, and you will be a blessing to them. You can give to them the gift of privacy and dignity and safety and support and friendship because you have a building. Let's use our buildings to serve one another. Amen. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zainab. I came from Sierra Leone, West Africa. I am a mother of 5 kids. I came into the United States with my children 7 months ago. When I came, I was fleeing from violence, depression, and all sorts of stuffs, and looking for a safety place for me and my children. When I crossed the border, I did not know what will happen to me and my kids. We were all being in the detention for 3 days. And then we were paroled from the border into the United States. We were put into a bus to the Chicago, kept in a hotel for a few days. Then we were found by the Sanctuary Working Group, Massive Faith Community, and the United African Organization. Thank you so much for this group, because without you, these groups, I don't know what we have been, what we will have been with my children. Thank you so much for agreeing, for accepting us, and for supporting us all this while with my children. These groups have been so very, very supportive to me and my kids. They help me with housing, food, transportation, and many more things. There are so much things they have done for me. I cannot even explain it. They helped me to get my children to school. You know, I'm just grateful to get these people in my life. And with the connection of these people, there are other people that came in, also give their support to us. I'm so grateful. We now know that we are loved and welcome. I'm begging each and everyone in and out there to please, if you have the opportunity to help even one immigrant or one family or anybody out there that is struggling, please do so, because we, the immigrants, we really need help. We really need help, people to embrace us. We need accommodation, houses, and everything. Please, if you can help one immigrant, you have changed the lives of many. There is no little gift or little help. There is no help that is little. For me, if anybody give me help or whatever it is, say, Zainab, manage this is little, I always reply, this is not little for me. This is bigger. Because for you to think of something to give me, it is really great in my life. And every day I pray for everybody that contributed to help me today. And I made a promise with all this help that I have now. I made a promise to also pass this help tomorrow to anybody. Even if I don't have, because helping somebody doesn't mean you have much. You can do kindness with the little you have to anybody you want to that is in need. Please, I'm begging you, we the immigrants, we need help. We need your support. We need your everything, legal services, for us to start life together with our children. Because we are not happy leaving our homes to come to the United States. We did not make it. We did not make it a choice. We did not choose to come to the United States. We come to the United States because we face so many problems and troubles in our country. That is why we came. Like for we mothers, me especially, I always say I will give up my life for my kids just to see them happy. And the love we have now, the peace we find now into the United States, I've never had this peace in my life. I'm loved, comfortable with people around me, and the people that are supporting me, they are so kind and loving with all good words. Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much. Please help. Please help and put a smile to someone's face. God bless you all.
Good afternoon. My name is Abdullah Mitchell. I serve as the Executive Director of the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago. And I can say a big burden's been lifted off my shoulders. I don't have to worry about what I say. It's not being recorded. With that said, I want to share three points with you that I think is very important. And listening to the words of all the speakers before me, there's not a lot that I can add. But I think I'm encouraged by how we are framing the issue. I just want to reframe it a little bit further. It's not a question of citizen versus alien, immigrant versus non-immigrant. It is the calling of all faith traditions to respond to the needs of another human being. So, as Zainab shared her story, what I would ask all of us to think of is not to look at her and her 5 children as immigrants who are in need. I want you to think of this as another human being, a mother with the responsibility of 5 children who she's ready to give her life, and she is in need. And as a community as a whole, we responded. And I want to carry that definition a little further because I'm sure many of you have noticed that the number of, they call them panhandlers, you see more people in need in the street. And I met a man, and I would render support to him when we encountered, but he had been on the streets for 10 months, and in that time period, he became disabled because he wasn't getting the services that he needed. And once again, I share that story so we are recognizing that the need is around us. All we have to do is open our eyes and respond as God-fearing people and serve the needs of any human being that is in need. The second point I want to share is I don't want anyone to feel that, we have to make this bold appeal to faith traditions or other churches or synagogues or mosques. People are doing. I've seen it. I've supported it. And what really has distorted this whole system we're dealing with now is what I would call, in my opinion, thank goodness this is not here, criminal acts that are being perpetrated by a governor down in Texas by just herding people on a bus and sending them any place, but not here. The same thing in the state of Florida, just putting people on a bus and sending them to all other places to shun their responsibility as human beings to the needs of another human being. So let's not let that distort our perception of what is being done by fifth communities. There's much more that needs to be done. And as a result of the efforts like this today, it does raise awareness that as we're busy dealing with problem A, yes, there's problem B, and we got to figure out problem B too. So yes, it's challenging, as it was said earlier, but nonetheless, it's a challenge that we can respond to. And we are. Thank you. Yes, we are. And the third and final point I would like to share with everyone is the Muslim community has been brought into this, the immigrant space. A lot of members in our community are immigrants of first and second generation from various countries across the world. Like we were involved with the Afghans when the Afghans came in, Syrians years ago, as well as the Rohingya as they were brought here to the United States. And I just share that process. What will make this successful is following the seeds of today where people are coming together, but recognizing this has to be a partnership, not only with faith communities, but our government leaders, so they can share their capacity and help us do what God has instructed us to do, be concerned for our fellow human being. Thank you.
Beloveds, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time and your attention today. Much has been shared from this podium. Many voices have called you to action. It is a lot to take in. We lift this call up today knowing full well that there are many congregations of various faiths spread out all across our city who are already doing this work faithfully and quietly and without fanfare. We celebrate their work and we honor them. At the same time, we also know that there are many more congregations who can stand up and join in this work. And today, we issue this call to all of you. I share in this esteemed fellowship of community leaders today because 41 years ago, the congregation that I serve, Wellington United Church of Christ, sent these words off to the United States Attorney General. And in this room today, we actually have somebody who helped craft this letter. Thank you, Dick Simpson. Today, our congregation voted to declare our church as a sanctuary for undocumented refugees from El Salvador. On Saturday, July 24th, we will openly receive a refugee family into the care and protection of our church. We realize in so doing that we will be in violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 274A. Now, some things have changed over the past 41 years. So today, no one is being asked to violate federal law and put themselves or their congregation at risk of arrest. But too many things have not changed over the past 41 years, such as the need for faith communities to join together in our work, to end deportations, to ensure that families stay together, and that migrants and asylum seekers are treated with the dignity and the respect that they deserve. I stand before you and lift up the same clarion call. Faith communities, open your doors. Offer sanctuary to our immigrant siblings who are currently sleeping with no dignity on the floors of police districts across our city. Provide for them a place of rest and refuge within the walls of your sacred communities. Stand up to accompany them for their first year in our city. And in this act of welcoming them, open yourself up to the presence of angels in your midst. Today, without a doubt, we are facing one of the biggest humanitarian crises since the end of World War II. Millions upon millions of people under unjust persecution and the threat of death are being driven from their homes and their homelands with no place to go and no country or community to receive them. As people of faith, we may not turn our backs on them or turn away. Speaking from my faith tradition, if Jesus is to be believed, we will be judged more by how we treat refugees than by whether or not we show up to church on Sunday morning. On the day when I stand before God and see the full glory of the divine revealed to me, I hope and pray that I will hear these words. I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Beloveds, we call upon you today to join with us in welcoming the stranger in our midst. Go to the website, lppchurch.org, and fill out the form to indicate your willingness to join us in this journey. Join us in welcoming with open arms those who have been cast aside or turned away. Join us in showing the world what it means to be a sanctuary city, and that the welcome of the city of Chicago is as deep as it is wide. May it be so, my beloveds. May it be so. Ashe and amen.
I think that's a wrap. So I want to thank you all for being here and thank all of you. I feel like I've been to church for weeks and I'm not going to need to go again. I'm so inspired by all of you and all of your words, so thank you.